So today I'm going to teach you how to make a stiff levain, because I think that's more what people typically think of, the 50-50 flour versus water. So starters are made with natural yeast. So there's yeast everywhere. There's yeast in the flour, there's yeast floating about in the air. This is about capturing good yeast and letting them ferment and using that as leavening for your breads. Obviously, it is very easy to start a starter. You really just need 2 ingredients, and that is flour and water. It doesn't have to be a particular type of water, it doesn't have to be bottled or anything like that. If you want to start it fast, you're going to use something like a coarse rye flour or coarse whole wheat flour, something that has been minimally processed so that you have more natural yeast still in your flour itself. You know, if you use a bleached or bromated AP flour, that's very highly processed. Probably not a whole lot of yeasties still hanging out in there. I have AP, which we could totally use. This is King Arthur's flour, unbleached, so it's still less processed than others, so this would be a totally great option. But I'm going to use rye flour because it's a little bit less processed, even still. So I'm going to take my scale. This is 50-50 by weight, not volume. So I've got my clean container, I've got my rye flour, I've got my water. I like to put my water in first. It's not the end of the world if you don't. So we're going to put 100 grams, and then I'm going to put 100 grams of my rye flour in here. Okay, we have 100 grams. This is just our flour and water. Stir up. Obviously, this is why it's called a stiff levain. Right now, she looks like a whole lot of nothing, but it's like a paste. It's cool. We're going to put the top on it, keep it covered, and then we are going to let it sit overnight, and we will feed her again tomorrow. So it's time for our day 2 feeding of our new sourdough. And I've got my scale here, I've torn it, which just means that I've zeroed it out for the container's weight. 100 grams of water, and then 100 grams of rye flour, and then we're gonna do 100 grams of our starter from yesterday. And then I'm just gonna mix it up. So we'll just let this ferment for another 24 hours, and then we'll feed her again tomorrow. Tomorrow's feeding will be the same, and then we'll change it up. So this is our sourdough starter. It's only day 3, if you can imagine. We've only fed her twice, and she's already basically grown a third overnight. So today we're going to do the exact same thing as we did yesterday, and I expect great things from her tomorrow. So today is day 4. She came all the way up to here overnight. So that means basically that she's ready. If she can double in 8 hours, then she's ready to use in any sort of sourdough that you have. So we're ready to feed her. Just so you can see it one more time, I'm going to take 100 grams of my old sourdough starter, 100 grams of water, take 100 grams of AP flour. Again, remember, we've switched from the rye because we don't want that strong of a flavor. Rye has a very powerful flavor, and if you want your bread to taste like rye flour, then you'll use rye flour in your bread, but you don't necessarily want all of your bread to have that rye flavor. Now all 3 ingredients are in here. We're just gonna mix her up, and now she's gonna sit overnight, and we'll just keep that process going. So this is how you tell that your sourdough starter is ready to go live. So this is day 7. So I've done 6 feedings in total. This has tripled in volume in 3 hours. Yes, 3 hours, that's it. So she is super strong, super happy, and she's ready to leaven bread. So the thing to keep in mind is, yes, it's ready in 7 days. In less than a week, you can be making sourdough from scratch. But before you're tempted to just be like, I'll just create a new sourdough starter every time I want to make it, first of all, woof. Second of all, the sourdough flavor will deepen over time. It will get more dynamic. It will be more powerful, both in leavening and also in flavor. And so that unique flavor that develops over time with routine feedings is what's going to give your sourdough its own special oomph, right?